Welcome again to another Lutro Customs sleeving guide. Now, I know that you guys have been kind of waiting for the paracord Heatshrinkless for a long time, not to mention a lot of other ones. Hopefully I can start juggling around my time a little bit better so I can start cranking them out a bit more. But being a pastor and everything, time is a luxury that I don't really have too much of. So, speaking of time, let's just jump right in. The supplies that you're going to need for the Heatshrinkless guide is going to be your shears. Now, I have two pairs here because I'm not sure which ones are sharper. And if you've ever cut paracord, you know that it needs to be a really sharp blade to cut it. Otherwise, you're going to be, sitting there trying to saw it off. And that's no fun. I'm going to do a little bit different today. I'm going to actually do a whole 8-pin cable, and then as I go through, I'll start throwing tips and tricks and stuff at you, just so you can get a good idea of what's going on. So you're going to need your connectors. This will be in an extension form. Now, frog tape, you can use this, and it works pretty well, because you're going to need something to wrap the pin around to get the paracord on. This takes a long time and it's time consuming. You can make your own tool out of a piece of antenna and a nail. If you see right there, all I did was take a nail, sand her down, and it's just a long part of a tube of an antenna. There is a company that makes these, PC Cable Sleeving, or PCCableEndSleeving.com. He makes some tools. Let me see if I can get a good shot of this. And they look pretty good. However, the one that I have is one of the first ones he did, and I think he milled it out of steel. The ones he has now are aluminum. So if you buy them, be very careful because this spot right here will bend. But it's definitely worth looking into and maybe suggesting that he, gives you the higher quality metal. But it is a lifesaver, and it saved me tons of time. So, of course, you're going to need your lighter. And your paracord. 550 paracord. I prefer Rothko from Amazon.com. Good prices, and especially if you have Prime shipping, it works out really well. So, we're going to start off just by grabbing our wires. Let's grab 2. We're going to need 8, obviously. So, let's grab 8 wires here. What I start to do when I start a job, or if I'm going to do a cable like this, I will sit down and I will make a diagram of, the colors that I'm going to need, how many pieces of sleeving I'm going to need, how many wires I'm going to need, and then what I will systematically do, those of you who've watched me do live sleeving know this, I will cut all my sleeve first, I will get it prepped and ready, and then I'll commence with the sleeving process. So, what we're going to do is I'm going to cut off some of my black paracord and get it ready. Now, as I said before, there is always a spot on these pins, and let me go ahead and zoom in here so you guys can see the action. Not that it's, full of action or whatnot. Now, there is always a spot on these pins where you should be able to measure it up to on both sides. Now, this is kind of a funky edge here, so we're just going to cut that right off. Remember to always do a straight cut when you're working with this. Make sure to line it up somewhere on the cable. I think for this, because it's kind of spaced out, I'm going to go the full length of the pin and start right there. And just so you know that you got it right, even though I've been doing this a long time, I'm going to zoom back out here. Right now what I'm going to do is I'm going to prep this melting it a little bit so it doesn't fray like crazy on me. And now you see the beauty of this tool. All I had to do was shove the sleeve over and just inch it on, like we always would. Of course, whenever I do a guide, nothing works out the way it's supposed to. Oh, there we go. And so I'm going to make sure, I don't think this one's going to work, but you can see where I have, the sleeving. Ooh, let's see if I can get back in there. You can see where I have the sleeving as compared to where the pin mark is. It's the same as the MDPC guide. Just make sure that it's right there, and then I'm just going to pull it. I don't have to stretch it really hard, but just enough. And it made it to the other side. However, it made it to the other side, but it was still a little long. You can see that it's going to cover the the other side of the pin here. Yay! That's not going to do us any good. So, we're going to go ahead and remove it off and remeasure to make sure that we got the right measurement. Now, the funny thing about paracord is that it will always be a little bit different, you know, even between colors and makers, and you know, sometimes the 550 diameter is supposed to be standardized, but sadly it doesn't always end up like that. So you just got to be careful to make sure that you're measuring each time you use a different color. So that last time we went to the top of the pin, I'm just going to go to that spot on the pin right there. I'm going to give her a cut. Pull out the guts. Prep the cable. And we're going to throw it on the wire. And here I'm going to double check the length again. And that's perfect. So now you can see that the wire's taut, the sleeving is taut, and it hugs the wire perfectly. So let's go ahead and do these other couple wires here really quick, or let's just get the sleeve out and bust down through them. Okay, now have you guys get a good close look at the way I melt these on the ends. Now obviously you didn't see that one, but let's try it on the black one. See if I can get right underneath the camera. Now if you watch, all I'm doing is melting it just a tiny bit. And you'll see ones like this that have a bunch of fraying. If that happens, you just go ahead and melt around the fray. And it's really easy. Let me grab one more colored one so you can watch. And I'm not really melting it a lot. I'm just making a little edge so that I can get rid of these frays. And this will help me put it on the actual wire come the time. That one's kind of a mess, but you know what? We'll make that work. Let's zoom back out here. You guys can watch me put on the wires. Okay, here's where the magic happens. We're going to take our previous wire that I already put the sleeve on, and let me see if I can get you in close here. Oh, too close. Alright. Now we have our wire. Let's see if I can get it to focus. Focus! It's focused on our wire. So, you see the orientation of the pin here. Look at the hiccups. Or a burp. One of the two. At least it's not a fart. That would be gross. So you see where the orientation of the sleeving is to the pin. It's the same as the MDPC. You don't want it too much higher, you don't want it too much lower, because when you put this in the connector, you want it not to be showing. So, but there's an easy way to do this. If you just take the bottom part of your flame, oh, it helps if I actually show you what I'm doing, doesn't it? Take the bottom part of your flame, and all I'm doing is melting it a little bit. And then I'm coming back, just tacking it down with my fingers. So you're going to end up with something like this. You don't need to melt the crud out of it, just enough to hold it. We're going to come over to the other side. You'll see that the orientation is the same. Maybe a little bit down further than we like. And so you just, stretch it back up a little bit. And then we're going to hit it with the fire again. And then we end up with a little tack. Just like that. So, let's do this on one of these wires that you can actually see what's going on here, huh? And we'll see if I can get you a more detailed shot of the plan here. Okay. This is our other cable. Now you can see the pin orientation is the same. It is on the pin in that area. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our lighter. Oh, can't really watch the camera at the same time. We're just going to see a little bit of melting happen. And then we're just going to come around and tack it. So this is what you end up with. Just a little bit of melt all the way around. It doesn't need to look pretty. As long as it's on the wire and it's in the spot that you need it in, you're not going to have any problems. Again, same spot. Using the bottom part of the flame. Just holding it on the outside. You'll see it curl up a little bit. And then you just tack her down. And it's not really hot. Well, relatively, I've been doing this a long time, so, I really don't have fingerprints on those fingers anymore, so it's, for me to tell you that it's not hot, I'm probably lying. Because you'll burn your fingers off for a while. Some people use gloves, but I prefer to have somewhat of a tactile sensation when I'm doing this. Otherwise I get lost on what I'm doing, or because I can feel out the quality while I do it. And if I can't feel it out, then we're going to back off of this a little bit so you can get a better understanding. Again, we're just going to melt it. And tack it down. If you end up with any little fuzzies or anything, you can just burn them back. Now you got to be careful. If you look on here, you'll see. Let's see if we can get you in a little bit closer there. You'll see on here that it has a tendency to move up. Now you don't want it past, oh, there we go, come on. You don't want it past those two prongs, because if you get this melt past those two prongs, it won't click in right. And then it's kind of a big mess. But you can always come back with your snippers and fix that. So don't worry if you do accidentally do that. You don't have to throw the wire away. You can just go back and fix it. But honestly, there's really not much to this. You don't need any special tools to do it, except for maybe to make your life easier with the one tool. to actually getting it on the wire. I'm going to zoom out here, and I'm going to finish the rest of these real quick. Okay, so you can see I have everything set out here and ready to go. What I'm going to do is put them together. You've already saw the heat shrinkless method. It's really simple, not really hard. But I'm also going to add a bonus to this video. I'm going to show you how I put them together and straighten them out. So this is just going to be a simple EPS connection. You know, most of you that have done this have put them in. Now you should be able to get it right in there perfectly if you're doing it right. It should just pop right in. And being that this is an extension, it is just going from one side to the other. Now, wouldn't you believe it, I started out the wrong way immediately. So, let me back up here a little bit. Lutro, why are you teaching us the wrong way? I like to be the best. No, I'm kidding. Not even close. So, plug this in. They'll pluggo that in. Plug this in. Is it gonna get sick of me saying that here soon? Hear the click. Hear the click. And now, what I'm gonna do is, it's gonna look ugly right away, so no fears. All I did was do slight little bending motions on the wire just to get it to go in the direction that I want. Get the other wire here. And we're going to put it in. Okay, that's lame. I won't say that anymore. Put it in the other side. Hear the click. And we're going to do the same thing, stacking the wires on top of each other, making sure to hit both sides. Now, for those of you that have used MDPC or any other kind of plastic type sleeving, it holds its form a lot better. Now, paracord you can get to hold its form, but sadly it's not going to do it all that well. If you keep the cable tight like I got going on and you got the diameters and everything right, you can get it to hold its form somewhat, but it's just not going to be as tight as you like. Now you can get past some of those downfalls by making sure that you He-Man strength tighten the sleeve. It depends on the type of wire that you use as well. You know, there's just a lot of factors that go into it. But typically if you follow this guide and you stretch your sleeve to a normal capacity, you're going to end up with a good product. And it's not going to be hard to make. So, that is what we end up with. This is an 8-pin extension, and it is ready to rock and roll in a system. Now, you will notice that it is heat shrinkless. So, you're not going to have any of that ugly heat shrink on it, and it should work out just perfectly. So that's the end of the guide. It's really simple. Basically, it comes down to you melting it on the pin, just like the plastic type sleeving, but you don't have to use any heat shrink. If you take your time and you work with it, you're going to end up with an awesome cable. And it doesn't need to be an extension. You can do this with any type. Just make sure you got good crimped wire. With paracord, you can use your OEM wires, even if they're colored, because you're not going to have any bleed through with paracord. The downside of that is it is fuzzy. If I were to have done this in plastic sleeving, it would have held its shape perfectly. And given some more training and stuff, and I could get this straighter, and I would just sit there and, you know, constantly do that until I got it straight. But for the most part, this works out well. It's a cheap, easy material to sleeve with. Comes in a lot of colors. And that's pretty much about it. If you guys have any questions, make sure to post them. I'll be having a lot more guides coming up. I'm going to be trying to make them short-ish like this one. Just a lot of tips and tricks that, you know, haven't been shared, or, you know, maybe not have been fully explained. So if you have any more questions, please feel free to ask. And as always, thanks for tuning in.